Welcome to Power Players by Origis, critical thinking to deliver the promise of clean energy.
Welcome to Power Players by Origis. My name is Glenna Wiseman. I am the head of marketing and communications at Origis Energy. I welcome you all to this conversation. In this episode, I have the distinct pleasure to host Doseke Akporiaye, the Executive Director for Women of Renewable Industries and Sustainable Energy, also known as WRISE. Welcome, Doseke.
Thank you, Glenna. It's a pleasure to have you here, and a big shout out to Origis Energy for being one of our biggest supporters. And your support and help makes it possible for us to do the work that we do. So thank you to you and to Origis Energy, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Well, we're going to talk a little bit later, listeners, to how you all can get involved in supporting WRISE. But right now, Doseke, as a way of introduction, could you tell us about your journey to this role and why it inspires you?
So my journey is a bit unconventional. It's not and maybe similar to a lot of people, because I think a lot of people assume to get into this industry, you have to be an engineer, you have to be a technician, and those are the only roles within the industry. So I came in from just regular corporate work. The bulk of my career was in consulting. So I actually started off as a computer programmer. I know, and I didn't like being a techie. I just couldn't. I can't be a gamer because I didn't like staring at the screen for like hours on end. And so I went into strategy consulting. I like that whole dialogue of trying to solve problems, interacting with businesses, understanding their needs, seeing the impact that they can make with communities through their products, through their services. And then I did that. And I think, like with every consultant, you always wonder, can I execute the strategies that I develop? And so I wanted to get industry experience. And so I went and ran a technology company focused on communications. And that was like a totally different ball game because it had to do with human dynamics. It had to do with managing different stakeholders that wasn't focused on just doing the job, right? As a consultant, you pride yourself in just your ability to deliver the job, right? But this was really about managing multiple stakeholders, understanding their needs, and trying to figure out how to get them to come together to achieve the goals of the organization. And then I quickly realized, you know what, I want to still do consulting. But I wanted to now focus more on working with like board members, C-suites, and founders, because that's where change happens. They're the ones that influence the entire organization, and they're the ones that have the ability to influence the industry. So I went and started my own consulting firm, ran that for like 12 years, working with like financial organizations, technology organizations, and just trying to work with them to either ideate, set up their businesses, or take them to the next level, how to deploy growth capital that they had either raised through their shareholders or they had done through equity rounds. And I did that for like 12 years. And, I started to ask myself the question, is this enough? Is just earning money and making impact, through for-profit organization, is that what I wanted to do? And so I wanted to go into social impact. I wanted to be in a situation where if I was spending 14, 15, 16 hours a day, I just wanted to feel like it was impacting lives beyond mine and beyond the bottom line. And so people will ask me, so where do you want to play? Do you want to work as an operating partner in a company, in a private equity company? Do you want to deploy capital? I was like, I don't know. I don't even understand the social impact space. I don't even understand where to play. And then, but I just kept on talking to people saying, listen, I want to be in the social impact space. I don't understand it, but I know I want to be there. I want to do something more meaningful. And so I met with a friend of mine that had impact capital that they were deploying to address the problem of energy access. So they were deploying capital in communities where they were totally off-grid, or they were in low-grid communities and didn't have access to electricity. And they needed someone to come help set up the business in one of their largest growth markets. And I had experience in that market. So that's how I got into clean energy, working with that organization to deploy, to set up the organization and just essentially affect households that didn't have access to power, rural communities. And they did that across like 6 countries on the West African coast. And that was my intro to clean energy as a developer, focused on residential solar, but residential solar for people that are at the bottom of the pyramid, or people that were in rural areas, or people that couldn't afford electricity, balancing that with, coming up with revenue models or financing models that combined aid, but also combined their ability to pay. So that was really interesting, but that meant I traveled a lot. And my family was in New York, and I wanted to be closer to my family, my aging mom, and I got headhunted by WRISE to join WRISE. And for me, it was a perfect marriage, because I understood the business, I understood the impact that having clean energy had on communities. Being able to just increase for those communities, just having access to electricity meant that they could work longer hours. They could generate more income. They could have jobs. They could send their children to school. Their children could read, with electricity rather than lamps or candles. So I could see I had experienced firsthand what it meant to give people that didn't have access to electricity and power the ability to have that, but also to have it, clean energy come to them and improve their health as well. So that's my journey. That's how I got into WRISE. And one of my deciding factors was I looked at what WRISE did, and I just imagined, if I had this kind of support in my journey, if I had this kind of exposure, if I had this kind of advocacy, that an organization was advocating for my needs within the industry that I was working in, on my journey, there were times, there's several times I'd taken a pay cut just because I wanted to get a job, because I wanted to get into the industry. And of course, there's no one out there saying, hey, she has she has skills that are comparable with her peers. She should get equal pay, right? Or drawing attention to it. Or just even knowing about the opportunities that existed, that I could transfer my skills. So though I didn't initially spend time, the bulk of my career in the industry, I had transferable skills that were useful in the industry. And a lot of people, don't realize that in the industry, as we're maturing, we need accountants, we need HR professionals, we need supply chain experts. Yes, we need electricians and we need engineers, but we need all those functions that help us build, good, sustainable businesses. And that is, something that attracted me to WRISE, our ability to do that for the industry, for our community as well.
Okay, there's a whole lot to unpack in that.
I
know. There is a whole lot of good stuff, like radical self-inquiry. You just kept looking inside your own soul to see, what is it that I can do? Am I happy with this? No, I'm not happy at looking at a screen all day. Where does that take me? Then you just kept taking one step and one step and one step. That is a case study for everyone listening to. We can make changes in our lives. We just have to look inside. We have to keep asking questions and take the next step.
And you have to just keep on putting it out there. I think I explained this, but it didn't happen in 1 month, right? It didn't happen in 2 months, but it just took consistently just putting the word out there, putting yourself out there, but putting the word out there that you are available, you have skill sets that are important to organizations, and you're interested in it. And I think a lot of the time, for some of the people in our community, we are just so self-conscious, Or we feel that, well, our work should speak for ourselves. We shouldn't market ourselves as much. We shouldn't put ourselves out there as much, right? But you really do need to, because you need to be top of mind of people that can connect you to your next opportunity. You need to be top of mind of people that are looking for good people. You need to be top of mind of people that are looking for partners. And so that's one key thing I would say that was critical to my getting into the industry.
Well, I said, and there's a couple points I think we could bring up here too around making a transition over to another role, which is understand your transferable skills. Really
sure.
Connect the dots between here's what you've done here and here's how it could apply over here, right? And then the other one, of course, is what we all talk about, which is traditionally women look at the laundry list or the Christmas list that the HR person puts out there for a new role and says, oh, well, I only fit 50% or I only fit 60%, and they don't apply, right? Whereas others will look at it and say, oh, 50%, I'm applying. Apply.
Sure.
Apply to the jobs. Apply.
I'll share a social experiment that someone told me about. And they had gone to a man and a woman and had said, we were doing this survey, and we can pay you between $10 to $15 if you would do this particular task. And so each person did it. They gave the woman $10 and she was like, oh, thank you very much. They gave the guy $10 and he says, well, you said you could pay between $10 and $15. Why are you not paying me $15? Right? And that's always the case we find with women, they just don't push sometimes, and they don't advocate for themselves and do not advocate for the best possible options that they can get. And that is critical for us to be able to grow within the industry.
Well, and growing we are. I mean,
yes.
let's talk about the human stories behind the job stats. Our industry in the US has created a record-breaking number of jobs. From coast to coast, approximately 3.5 million people work in renewable energy. Last year alone, we added almost 150,000 jobs.
Yeah.
Often the human stories, the human face of those success stories is lacking. So Doseke, can you share a couple of those with us?
That's a great question. I want to even build on some of the data that you've mentioned so that people can really understand the scale of what we're doing in this industry. As of 2023, the United States had employed over about 3.3 million people. 1 out of 50 workers nationwide is in the clean energy sector. This is more than the total number of nurses nationwide. And we know how strong the healthcare industry is. That's more than 1 million of these jobs are located in the US South. And it's been beneficial to all Americans and their communities. In the past 2 years, for example, we've deployed over $500 billion in new investments, about 160 manufacturing facilities within the industry, about 40-something already deployed, creating about 20,000 manufacturing jobs, about 120 are under construction. Over 55 gigawatts of capacity has been added that can power over 10 million homes. We have over 30 billion, in announced energy manufacturing investments. So that will create over 200,000 jobs. We have strengthened clean energy infrastructure. The investment in this industry is not just taking back legacy industries that were dying, but bringing life back to them.
Creating energy dominance.
Plants exactly, Ohio, Colorado, West Virginia, New York. There's a steel plant, I think, in West Virginia that was used, converted to manufacture. So we're doing so much in this industry. And guess what, Glenna? It has taken a workforce of both women and men to achieve this great feat in the industry. And it's definitely worth celebrating that this industry has the capacity to create jobs for all of us in the country. both men and women, and to really revive communities that have been slowly dying. And a lot of the time, even when we look at this data, we don't put a face to some of the people that have contributed to this. And I want to just share maybe about just 3 people. There's a lady, Riley Nugbauer. Forgive me if I don't pronounce the name correctly. She started as a fellow. She started as a technician and has grown. She's now working for a developer. These are women that are creating impact within the industry. One of our fellows, April Christensen, she started as a WRISE fellow over 15 years ago. She's now at Clearway Capital as a senior management within the organization again. There's another one of our fellows, Jennifer. She actually works with Secularity, The Gap, the clothing company. So these are people who started off as just programs within WRISE and have grown to be one of the percentage, 35 or 30% of women in the industry that has created these results of 140 something jobs, created these results of those manufacturing plants that are being opened, those partnerships that are being forged with communities. These are people that are making impact within the industry. We've met people who, for the first time through getting a job within renewable energy, they've been able to send their children to school. They are not even first generation educated people. They've been able to send their kids to school. They've been able to provide for their families. Creating jobs for them means that they've been able to get off welfare. They've been able to get off Medicaid because they're now earning and they can provide, subscribe to healthcare plans for their families. So there are people that through working within the industry, they are changing the narratives for their families. They're changing the destinies for their families, but more importantly, they're getting their self-dignity back. They're getting off dependence. They're getting off reliance, and they're working. There are people who worry that, I don't have a degree. They can go, they've joined as trades in the trades sector where they can support construction within the industry. They can train to be electricians. So the industry is just creating and really reviving not just other sectors that have been dead, but reviving hope for people, giving families dignity. You have stories of veterans, women that are leading their families because they have veterans that are disabled. Right? Through the jobs that they're getting, they're able to look after their family that are veterans and maybe they are disabled and will not be able to support their family. So there are all these wonderful stories that we hear of how a job within the industry is changing the lives of families, changing the lives of communities. We have projects that are being developed in underserved communities where ordinarily they didn't have access to electricity at an affordable cost. Now they can afford it. Their electricity bills are coming down. So just looking at the sector, any decision taken in the sector, it's not just a decision or a policy, it actually affects the lives. It affects the ability for someone to put food on the table. It affects their ability to have a dignified job. It affects their ability to get off dependence and to be able to allow that dependence for those that really need them more than they do. And that has been our experience at WRISE and talking and working with some of our partners as well.
And I'm also heartened by those stories because it's examples to those children and those families that you can move the legacy of your family forward in a positive manner. I think that's part of it. And I also, when I look at Origis, we have amazing women in the field helping us to take care of these assets and this critical infrastructure all the way through to a senior VP level, and in terms of raising money for the company because these things are expensive to build, and all throughout engineering, capital markets,
Mhm.
of course, marketing and communications,
Of
you know,
course.
all parts of HR, all parts of the
Mhm.
industry, of the ecosystem within the company, what those that you expect and those that you might not expect,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
We have women doing analytics for BESS and for, you know, financial modeling for
We have,
solar and storage. I mean, it's really inspiring when you see
I
all the
know.
skill sets.
You're so right. We have women across all the different functions within the industry that we see, from financial modeling. And we know that those financial models are becoming more complex, within the industry, but we do have women representation. We have them in O&M facilities as well, providing operations and maintenance, and that myth that women were only in the back office, doing HR and admin work, that's not the case. We have women representation. When I look at RISE, we have early stage, mid stage, senior, and executive, and we have members that span from early stage right up to executive level, in commercial, in terms of the commercial department, in terms of development, land acquisition, insurance. And as the industry is maturing, what we're finding is that we're getting a little bit more specialized. So we're finding that we're creating new functions and new expertise, and we have women there. We have people along the supply chain that are experts in terms of supply chain, that are experts in terms of procurement, that are experts in terms of installation, that are experts in just so many different areas. And that's what happens when you look at the problem we're trying to solve from a holistic perspective, and you say to yourself, if we need to bring a skilled workforce to be able to continue, right, to do the work that we do, then we have to get them from everywhere, right?
Right.
And so you open your mind to, whoever it is that can bring that acumen, that can bring that specialty. And we found that, we have good representation across all those levels.
Well, and what I do see that is a kind of a connect the dots between your experience coaching and working with senior executives and boards and where the industry is now. And the industry is now got opportunity to grow in terms of moving women into the top echelon of decision making. How do you, in your role now, try to coach and help companies move toward a more diversified, for want of a different word, executive level board? And what are the kinds of things that you tell them that would help them make those decisions?
So that's a great question. I think if you look at how have we achieved the success that we've achieved as an industry, the first thing is whatever success we're experiencing now took years, maybe decades before us, of certain kinds of actions, right? What are those kinds of actions? It took a deliberate action of creating a conducive and an enabling environment for businesses to thrive in this sector through incentives, subsidies, clean energy standards and mandates from state levels, through states and the leadership at states, deciding that this was important to them, through activism, through advocacy. It's taking technological advancement and a dedicated investment towards this sector for us to get here. So it's taken some deliberate actions for us to get here, right? And so the question is, if we want this industry to continue to exist in another 20 years, then what we do now is critical to ensure that we exist. The outcome of the industry in 20 years is dependent on the decision that we do not take now. Right. That's the first premise. And so you begin to ask yourself the question, so what decisions should we be taking? What are the things that have helped us get here? What has helped us get here is saying multiple perspectives help, bring about better outcomes, right?
Right.
Multiple perspectives at the table help us make better, products, generate new, better product ideas, better technological solutions, because we already identified that technological advancement was one of the things that brought us here, right?
Right.
So we know, having multiple people with diverse perspectives and diverse backgrounds coming together to work on problems and solutions means that the outcome is going to be better. And we must continue to invest in that. We must continue to invest in making sure that we are deliberately seeking perspectives that are actually different from ours.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you seek perspectives that are different from yours, at least you understand what that other person is thinking. You may not agree with it, but you understand what they're thinking, and it allows you to be able to plan. It allows you to be able to factor that into your decision making.
And maybe why they're thinking that.
And why they're thinking that. Mm-hmm. So we must continue to adapt. We must continue to expand our reach. We must continue to, and this is what we tell executives, it is, the data is already there. The data is there that having more diverse teams leads to higher gross profits for companies. The data is there that having more diverse team leads to increased, more success in terms of international market expansion. The data is there that having more diverse perspective and diverse thoughts just leads to more cohesiveness within your teams and leads to better outcomes within your organization. The question is, why isn't that happening? Why aren't you not seeing it translated, or embraced totally, right? And so one of the things we're doing at RISE is to influence and to educate leadership, to let them understand the benefit of these things, why it is good for business, to be able to steer them to see the successes that we've achieved in terms of job creation, the successes that we've achieved in terms of reviving communities that were dead. This took, advocacy. This took activism. This took deciding that, we wanted a better planet. We wanted a better future. We wanted a better climate, right?
We want abundant, affordable energy for everyone.
Exactly. You go. And we want economic empowerment for everyone. Because if the majority of people are more economically empowered, then it means that we're better off as a community. We're better off as country, right? So it's again reminding these executives of the benefits of how we got here, the work that was done to get here, and the need to continue to do that work, the need to continue to invest in diverse people, in a skilled workforce. And in getting that skilled workforce, we need to expand our net to multiple people, different kinds of people that would ensure they bring their perspectives into our work, into our different businesses. So you imagine you're going to do development into a community that is predominantly a particular ethnicity or race, right? And your entire team, there's no representation of those people in that. It's going to be more difficult for you to be successful with your projects. Right? So there's a place for having multiple perspectives and bringing all these different people into the work that we do and being mindful of how it affects the work that we do. And that's what we continue to educate and influence leaders. Our Leadership Forum Conference, it's also the perfect opportunity for leaders within the industry to come. This year, we're celebrating 20 years, and we're going to be having a session, having our Leadership Forum in Atlanta, October 14th to 16th. And one of the things that we want to actually do in this conference is highlight the role of allyship. This is important. We all need allies and advocates for the work that we do. In order to achieve whatever your goals are, whatever your mission is, you do need to expand that pool of people that are advocating, that are activates for you, that are propagating, your mission and your goals. And so the Leadership Forum Conference it's a good platform for us to do. But going forward, what we would like to do at RISE is to have more thought leadership and best practices that we can share with these leaders of organizations so that they can see how they can continue this work of making sure that we have those diverse perspectives in different facets of their businesses, because it does help business do better.
So what I see, you're painting the picture of, on the one hand, I'm getting inside of the executive's head and providing them with data, providing them with help to build systems, providing them with the information that they need to expand the reach in terms of their ranks. On the other hand, and I personally experienced the executive session at the last leadership forum, it's training and helping women to move into those roles and to have that allyship, as you said, of others, their network on those levels that they can depend on. So that's an important part of what your organization offers women.
Yes,
right?
that is correct.
There are others on your ranks. There are others on your ranks and ranks ahead of you to help you, coach you to move into those roles. Right?
Correct. Yes. And so we launched our Executive Women Summit last year at WRISE. And again, this is focused, like you mentioned, focused on executive women, that to one, help them develop themselves as executive women. The challenges that they face are a little bit different from women that are other cadres. So this was specifically for them. This was an opportunity for them to get. So for executive women, a lot of the time they're given. So they had the opportunity to give, to mentor other younger women throughout the conference on speaking on panels. But this specifically was to give back to them. What are some of the developments that they require? They face, different challenges from women and other cadres. So for example, just talking about salary negotiation, right? The way an executive woman would negotiate is totally different, right? She would be looking at shares. She would be looking at ownership of companies. She would be looking at performance bonus that are tied to the performance of the organization. And these different classes of shares, for example, these are specialized negotiations. And so one of the things we want to do at this year's leadership conference is to bring an expert to that summit to get them to tell them, what they should look out for. The second thing, again, that women at this level need is coaching. What you'll find is a lot of executive women are either mentors or coaches to younger women. A lot of them don't invest in themselves as
in
coaches,
their own coaching.
their own coaching. And those coaches would help them through not just career decisions, but even just problems that they're facing within their respective organizations or portfolios. And so one of the things we want to do also is bring some coaches that will offer some complementary times to those women so that they can actually get some professional experts and work with them and decide if they want to work with them. And so we're going to actually send out some kind of a survey or some to just get feedback from these executive women to find out what other things would they like to learn or to hear within that session, and build the program around their needs, because we want to create this as an opportunity for them to get back since they're constantly giving out.
Right.
The second thing I wanted to mention is WRISE is relaunching as part of our 20th anniversary program, our mentorship program. Peer mentorship program, where if you're a member or if you're a corporate sponsor, your staff and your team can actually access this free. You can only access it if you're a member of WRISE or a corporate sponsor. And so we match people. We typically have about 300 people that we do for a 6-month curriculum, and they can basically provide mentoring to each other. So imagine someone at your level, either as a manager or a senior manager, being matched with you, maybe in another industry or another region. They probably can understand some of the challenges you're facing and can provide support and learning and exchange learning. So that's something we're really excited about this year that we're relaunching as part of our 20th anniversary.
Okay, Doseke, we could talk for a long, long time. How do you see WRISE keeping the momentum going for our industry and women in it?
So that's a great question. And, I want us to start off by just acknowledging that it is tough. We have people within our community that are confused. We have people within our community that have lost their jobs. We have people within our community that are anxious. We have people within our community that just don't know what to do, what to expect. So it is confusing. And I want to acknowledge that, that it's a time of some anxiety and complexity. And so the question is, what do you do? It's a time of uncertainty. And so the question is, what do you do, during such times? And you do the next best thing. The next best thing is, one, you focus on what are the things, how do I ensure that I can create a space for not just my community now, but people within the industry where they have a place to come to be able to find out what their options are, a place to come to where they're able to find out what the opportunities are, how they can pivot, what are the roles that are out there that they can look at. So one thing that RISE wants to do more of this year is to spend time listening to our community, getting that data, and being able to organize things quickly to be able to provide that additional support for them. So we're going to be, for example, we're having a webinar that's coming up this month, and the comps are going to go out soon. Just looking at the changing landscape of DEI, what are your rights, your employment rights, and we're going to get expert lawyers and DEI representatives to come and tell people, what your options are and what you could do. So we want to do more of those kinds of things. The next best thing you can do is to continue to invest in the future. And in investing in the future, we want to continue to, while we acknowledge these uncertainties, we want to still, our mission has not changed. Our mission is to remove those barriers that prevent the advancement of all women within the industry. That has not changed. We're going to remain focused on that mission, and we're going to continue to focus on our long-term view. The next best thing is saying to ourselves, how do we ensure we contribute towards, creating the industry that remains relevant in 20 years? What role can we play? We're a 501(c) organization. We can't do advocacy, but we can educate. So we're going to keep on educating and reaching out to people, expanding our reach and reaching out to people who ordinarily we would not reach out to, people who don't ordinarily even agree with our ideology for affordable clean energy. We're going to reach out to them because now is not the time to isolate anyone. Now is the time to try and continue educating and pushing hard, because the work that we do now, the work that we do in the next couple of years will influence the state of the industry in the next 10 years. So we can't stop, even though some of us may be confused or disheartened or uncertain. This is the time to shore up. This is the time to become even more laser focused on pushing the agenda for a planet and an industry that is equitable for all people on our planet. We're going to be saying to ourselves, how do we build an industry that the best and the brightest people would still want to actively participate in? How do we ensure that we're generating the workforce for the next 20 years? It starts now. So we want to partner with people that are looking at STEM programs. We want to partner with people that are looking at educating the next generation of leaders. We want to be forward looking in our approach, incorporate innovation, sustainability, adapting. How do we push all these things so that we remain focused? The danger is being distracted by this uncertainty and not remaining focused on what lays ahead. And that is what we're going to keep on doing.
And even if you don't have the answers, as we heard from Doseke's original story, even if you don't have a total vision, even if you don't have all the answers in front of you, do the next best thing. If you're a company, get involved with RISE, support RISE. If you are new to the industry, get involved with RISE and find the community that's closest to you. So there are compadres that you can hang out with, right? If you are already in the industry at whatever level, get involved, so that you have colleagues and a network that you can depend on and you can ask questions. Doseke, thank you so much for being with us. We will put the RISE information in the blog post that goes along with the episode recording. You are indeed a solar power player. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Glenna. And I will just say as a last thing, the future of our industry is dependent on what you do now. The industry we're enjoying now was done by works in the past, by activism, by advocacy, by pushing hard. So if we want our industry to still remain in 20 years, we must do the things we need to do now to ensure that it continues to exist, it continues to be equitable, and it continues to provide economic empowerment for all people within our communities and our society.
Perfect. And this is a great conversation in that direction. Thank you.
Find more information on this topic and more insights on clean energy at origisenergy.com.